Alright, before we jump into this video, I have to thank the awesome Australia and New Zealand Bungie team who have super generously handed us some Follow the Light emblem codes. Check the description for the exact day and time, but in a week I'll be choosing 2 winners to receive an emblem. All you've got to do is subscribe to the channel with notifications on, give the video a thumbs up, and let me know in the comments what you think of this new Iron Banner hand cannon. Alright, let's jump into the video. G'day Guardians, it's Matt here, and today we're going to be breaking down the brand new Iron Banner hand cannon, the Frontier's Cry. Throughout the video, I'll be going over the roles that I use to formulate this review, the perks and god rolls to chase, its base stats and how they look in comparison to the other hand cannons in the game, and what this gun looks like and feels like inside of PvP and PvE content. Off the very rip, let's talk about it at face value, because I think a lot of people have formulated a fairly negative opinion of this weapon for a few reasons that you can actually see at a glance, and maybe that's warranted. These reasons would be its weapon archetype and its intrinsic trait perk. Frontier's Cry is a precision frame hand cannon, which means it shoots at 180 rounds per minute. If you paid any attention to the PvP meta over the last year and a half, you'd know that hand cannons have continued to reign supreme, but definitely not 180s. 120 hand cannons had their time in the limelight, but at the moment it's all about 140 hand cannons. For serious PvP players, most of them wouldn't be caught in the Crucible without their Ace of Spades, Palindrome, Annual Skate, or that brand new hotness, the Cantata. They're the heavyweights when it comes to hand cannons in PvP, and that's because they're 140 RPM, and that's the current meta. It begs the immediate question, Bungie gave it a 180 RPM, was Frontier's Cry even meant for PvP? Because when you have an Iron Banner weapon, the assumption is that it's probably going to be for PvP, aside for some early on stasis builds with Headstone on Peace Bond, but that's where its intrinsic trait perk confuses us even more. Skulking Wolf reads, during the hunt, final blows with this weapon grant enhanced radar and remove you from opposing radar. So this gun is very much a conundrum. Its trait perk is not only PvP based, but it's centered around Iron Banner and enhancing your Iron Banner experience, but it shoots at a much faster RPM. It's not meta by any standard inside of PvP, making it a very off-meta PvP weapon. This is what it looks like at a glance, and I will revisit my thoughts on it properly in the PvP section in this video. Feel free to use the timestamps down below. For the sake of not jumping to any conclusions immediately, let's just imagine that 180 hand cannons might become meta one day, and we're going to need this bad boy ready for when that happens. So to get a good feel for this weapon, I was lucky enough to snag 3 different roles when I popped my Iron Banner bounties at the start of the season. These are the ones that I carried over from last season. The first role had Compulsive Reloader and Eye of the Storm, combined with some great barrel and mag options. Naturally, this one stood out as a PvP role, since there's quite a few players out there that highly rate Eye of Storm for winning duels with hand cannons, and Compulsive Reloader being one of the new perks that dropped in Witch Queen, has received less attention overall, but fits pretty nicely to hand cannons in PvP, essentially giving faster reloads after getting a kill with your weapon, and since you're only using a handful of shots to kill a Guardian, it works really nicely. The second role featured Tunnel Vision and One for All, with a stacked amount of range coming from the barrel, the rounds, and the masterwork. This one had PvE all over it, since it is extremely difficult to proc One for All inside of Crucible. While Tunnel Vision is hit or miss in PvE, the extra ADS speed was welcomed when mowing down some red bars. And for the third role, it dropped with one of the new perks, Adaptive Munitions and One for All, and had some very average options for the barrel and mag. Now at this point, I was going to conduct a review based on those 3 roles, and I had this video scheduled for last week, but when I realized that Iron Banner was just around the corner, I figured I would wait and I would try and grab a couple more roles to expand my sample list. After playing for a few days now, I have managed to grab a 4th and a 5th role, both really interesting as well. One has Rapid Hit and Iron Reach with accurized rounds and corkscrew rifling, which is an absolute range machine, and the other one is Rapid Hit and Adagio, again with accurized and corkscrew. This particular role I found pretty fascinating because Adagio gives a nice 30% damage buff on hand cannons after getting a kill, but also slows the weapon down to around a 150 RPM for a very short duration. I'd like to say that I've used each role fairly evenly, but that would be a lie. I tried my best, but I constantly gravitated towards the Tunnel Vision One for All role and both of the Rapid Hit roles more often than not, and you'll find out why throughout the video. But if you're looking to get your hands on one of these bad boys, you do have a few ways of getting one. You can spend your Iron Banner tokens with Saladin to get loot. There is a chance at the end of each Iron Banner match to drop one. You have the 4 bounties on each character, essentially giving you 12 direct chances at the weapon there. And of course, the first step of the Iron Banner quest available is dropping a guaranteed Frontier's Cry, so it wouldn't be too hard to get these across the 3 characters pretty quickly. Unfortunately, there's a whole lot of RNG to get any sort of desired Iron Banner weapon to drop, and then you also run the dice roll of it being a weapon with perks, a masterwork, or with the barrel and mag options that you like. Just hang in there, I'm sure you'll snag one soon enough, and probably when you least suspect it. Probably when you're trying to get that ability bounty done and you're at 80% and you've played 50 games in a row and it just doesn't seem to be progressing at all, and then boom, Frontier's Cry at the end of that match. Alright, so let's have a look at which perks that we should be chasing on this hand cannon, starting off with PvE in mind. We have Tunnel Vision, which is very okay. It increases our aim assist, our accuracy, and gives bonus ADS handling. So if you get this on your roll and you want it for PvE, you will be constantly reloading to feel its effects, but the effects are quite a nice touch if you're out there clearing some red bars. Rapid Hit is also a nice consistent perk where hitting precision shots increases stability and reload speed, and with how nice this hand cannon does feel, it won't be an issue to help you ad clear. We do have one of the new perks, Stats for All, where hitting 3 different targets procs an increase in range, stability, handling, and reload speed, which is super nice, and you would have guessed it synergizes perfectly with One for All in the other column. For the rest of the perks in this column, I don't particularly recommend for PvE. I don't think the added handling from Steady Hands is too necessary. I think Compulsive Reloader is counterintuitive to PvE gameplay where you'd usually be using your clip to clear ads, and unfortunately the new Adaptive Munitions perk feels extremely underwhelming, and I often think to myself, if I'm going into an endgame PvE activity where there's specific shields that I need to break, I'll just take a weapon with that element instead of struggling with this hand cannon using that perk. It's just a little bit silly. Over on the other column though, we already know that One for All is a fantastic pick inside of PvE with that Stats for All synergy, giving this weapon a massive buff to its stats but also a 35% damage buff all simultaneously. Adagio is actually a great pick inside of PvE. It gives the hand cannon a bonus 30% damage buff on kill. It does reduce the fire rate down to approximately a 150 RPM, and I don't know whether or not my maths is right there, but for comparison's sake, it does feel like a 140 RPM, which is already pretty nice to use inside of PvE. The last option I recommend for PvE is Kill Clip, which is nice and easy to activate by getting a kill and then just reloading, which would synergize perfectly with something like Rapid Hit or Tunnel Vision. Inside of PvP though, I would actually recommend these first 4 perks within this column. Again, Tunnel Vision requiring a reload to proc would only be suited if you had Kill Clip in the other column, but the added ADS handling makes this hand cannon snap onto other Guardians really nicely. Steady Hands gives you a nice 8 seconds of buffed handling for all of your weapons for getting a kill, and then it can be extended by 6 seconds for getting another kill. This perk is essentially a passive, so in the other column, I would try and pair it with something like Iron Reach or Eye of the Storm, which makes for good, pure gunplay, and sometimes that's all you want out of a weapon. Compulsive Reloader is an interesting one, but it's actually pretty good. If you reload your weapon and there's still 70% of the mag left, the perk gives a plus 50 stat bonus to your reload speed. Now, at a base level, Frontier's Cry has 13 shots in the mag, which would mean that you can shoot 4 and then reload and it would proc the perk. If you shot any more than 4 shots, then the perk won't kick in. I mention this perk because that's usually how many shots it takes to kill a Guardian in Crucible, give or take a shot if you miss one or if they're already hurt. The last one in this column is the tried and tested Rapid Hit, which seems to be everyone's favorite, and it just feels incredible. Precision hits are what we do with hand cannons in PvP, so you may as well be rewarded with that stability and reload speed, obviously pairing it insanely well with Kill Clip. In the other column, the only other perk that I would recommend for PvP is Adagio, which can allow you to 3-tap Guardians when procced, making it feel like your usual 140 hand cannon. One thing I find super important to understanding and just appreciating a weapon is to compare its base stats to other weapons with the same archetype. Currently, there are 6 hand cannons in the game that shoot at 180 RPM. We have the Frontier's Cry, which is Solar, Posterity for Arc, the Ikelos hand cannon for Void, Vulpecula on Stasis, and 2 kinetics being Survivor's Epitaph and the 7th Seraph Revolver. What I want to do is take a look at some of its important stats and see how it fares against these other weapons. If we take a look at range, you can see that it has a whopping 48 stat points, which is incredible because if you added a barrel and a mag like Hammerforged and Accurized rounds, paired with Iron Reach and even a range masterwork, you'd be well in the 90s for range, which is just insane. For stability, it's essentially on par with Posterity, with only being 1 point behind, but still at the peak of 180 hand cannons for that stat, with most of the others fairly below it. For handling, it outshines most others, and again, essentially on par with the Survivor's Epitaph at the top there. And lastly, while not a very big one, the magazine size is above the rest, holding 13 shots in the mag, on par with posterity as well. Overall, making this hand cannon actually very good. Regardless of what you might think of it, at a base level, it's a really good weapon and essentially bests the other 5 180 hand cannons in the game. If you get your desired perk combination, you will have yourself a pretty good weapon here. But with all that said and done, how does it feel in PvE? To be completely honest, it doesn't feel like it holds up too well, but it's definitely not a last pick for primary ammo energy weapons, or if you just need a reliable hand cannon. In a meta where SMGs like Funnel Web are filling up everyone's primary ammo slot, it's hard to justify putting it away and whipping out this fat boy instead. Aside from Ariana's Vow and Sunshot, this is the only legendary solar hand cannon in the game, since Annual Skate and Igneous Hammer are now vaulted. So there is a place for Frontier's Cry, especially when hand cannons seem to always have a place because of the seasonal champion mods. One thing I will note though is Bungie is very good at filling the blanks with weapons when they're involved with champion mods. What I mean is, since Unstoppable Hand Cannon is this season, it almost feels like it was a necessity for Bungie to introduce this weapon so that players can cover champions and still cover solar shields in endgame content. More or less an obligation to accessible loadout options instead of it being a service to the weapon-based movement that we're seeing in game at the moment. It feels like a gap filler, and it's showing by its underwhelming presence in popularity and in the meta. It's truly not awful, but I feel like 180s just aren't in a great place in PvE, especially with so many great options in bows, SMGs, or even 140 hand cannons that can clear and control adds much faster without having the restrictions of what comes with a 180. Over on the PvP side of things, Frontier's Cry actually made a bit of a statement for itself during this week's Iron Banner. According to the Charlemagne bot that probably lives in your local Discord server, it's currently the #1 weapon inside of PvP. This could be for 3 reasons. 1, it's new and everyone's giving it a red hot go. 2, I think every YouTuber and blogger is currently reviewing it. Sorry, not sorry. And 3, the gun actually does feel kind of nice. So word of mouth is probably in there as well. It's not like any other 180 hand cannon I've tried within Crucible. Even the Survivor's Epitaph, which is a Crucible weapon drop, doesn't hold up anywhere near as nicely as the Frontier's Cry when you're engaging in gunfights. The stability, the range, the zoom, and the very minimal kick after each shot actually feels incredible to take into PvP, and even though the gun is the furthest thing from the current meta, it does hold up. Staple roles like rapid hit and kill clip are what we're always chasing on hand cannons when it comes to PvP, and Frontier's Cry is no different. It's not going to be a weapon that I'm in a rush to use in the Crucible. Hell, it might be once in a blue moon thing until 180s are properly informed to being meta. But I do really enjoy the fact that I can bring this weapon out if I want and still score some kills in a similar fashion to any 140. A cheeky little side note, I was using triple hand cannon targeting on a piece of Artifice helmet armor and it honestly made this gun feel ridiculous, so I do recommend going in and trying that out. But that's everything from me, guys. I hope you enjoyed this review of the Frontier's Cry. Typically a lot longer of a video than I usually like to make, but I really do enjoy diving deep into these weapons and giving my honest thoughts on how to best approach them. Don't forget to enter our Emblem giveaway. All you need to do is sub to the channel, hit the notification bell, like the video, and comment your thoughts on this hand cannon, and I'll catch you in the next video. As always, take it easy, Guardians.